My journey into the pet industry started in biotechnology. And the reason I went into biotechnology is because I am a biochemist. What I learned in biotechnology is that I am a very bad biochemist who loved biotechnology and needed to educate up in order to be able to stay in biotechnology. I dumped the lab coat, I got an MBA, and I realized that what I really loved about biotechnology was the innovation and the impact that I was able to make in doing the work. And it was work that I loved to do. I was inspired to do the work. I had purpose, I had meaning, but even more than that, I had a positive identity. And the identity was shared with colleagues, was shared, it was mutual, and it was just joyous. I just was at the top of my game while I was working in biotechnology until I found out that I had to lay off a good portion of my work staff. My colleagues were riffed, and I was ultimately laid off. I did not want to leave that job. That was a sense of purpose, that it wasn't just finding another job, it was a true identity, and I was devastated to have lost that. So in typical biochemist fashion, because even though I was bad at it, I still had a really overactive left brain, I tried to wrap my left brain around what had just happened and what I needed to do to get out of that funk. And what I discovered was that I needed to really flex my underdeveloped and underused right brain and find creativity and find a sense of clarity as to why this was having such a big impact. I was fortunate in that when I was in biotechnology, I traveled all the time. I had a boatload of frequent flyer miles that had accrued, and I took all the frequent flyer miles, and I went to a country as far, far away as I could get. A vacation that my husband still refers to as our third world vacation. And I spent time there, and I just thought about what do I need to do to get back this sense of purpose and to find out how to make this not happen to me again. So my left brain came back and said, if you could figure out how not to get laid off again and to do work that you found impactful, what would you do? Of course, you would start a company in the pet industry. So here I am with all of you who are all very passionate and innovative and caring and have this identity. It's perfect. Then I would get to live wherever I wanted to live, which today may not seem so perfect, but I get to live in Boulder. And I could hire people who I would never lay off. So I started that process, and I quickly realized that we had work that needed to be done that had ebbs and flows. And so it was difficult to hire the right amount of people for that work. And so what I did is I went a very traditional path. I went to a temp agency and I hired temporary workers. These were folks that were often in between jobs, and so we spent a lot of time retraining workers and doing things that I was wholly unprepared to do, such as explaining why it's never a good idea to smoke weed outside your boss's office while you're on break. And so I realized at that point that I needed to change my approach to finding people, and what the economist had always told me in business school was accurate, that if you have an unemployment rate of less than 4%, everybody who really wants to work is working. And so we know that going a traditional path lends itself to difficulties. I needed to find a non-traditional path. I needed to figure out if there was a way that I could find a workforce that met all of my goals and was a workforce that really wanted to work. And what I found was in intellectually and developmentally disabled adults that they not only want to work, but they go through extensive job training and job coaching. And they're more than just an employee. They have traits that actually lend themselves to productivity in the workforce, exactly what we're looking for, especially when we have roles that have those ups and downs and can be pretty repetitive in nature. The other thing that I learned is that globally, there are over 200 million intellectually disabled adults, and in the US, there are 6.5 million. Of the 6.5 million, only 28% of working age adults have the opportunity to work, and only 17% work in a competitive environment. So I went back to the difficulty I had when I wanted to work and they didn't want me to work, and it took away that identity. And I thought about how could we make an impact, make a difference in this workforce. So in 2005, InClover and Core Labor Source formed a public-private partnership, and we have hired since that time over 40 intellectually disabled adults at our facility. They have over 10,000 hours of work. We measure KPIs regularly. As a matter of fact, they're usually shouted through the hallway every day. And it has created a generous and gracious workplace environment that spreads into the DNA of the company. And that's really what is key to the impact that we've made. In closing, I had considered telling you the impact that this has all had on me, but I feel like the real difference is really in the people that are impacted. And so I've invited somebody here today who is part of the workforce at InClover and has really made a difference in our workplace KPIs and the workforce environment. So I want to introduce you to Randy and give Randy an opportunity to tell you what's made a difference. This is Randy right here.
I'm Randy, and I've worked at InClover since 2015. I enjoy doing this job because I like progress. We make, and I like the money too. I go to a lot of rock concerts, and I'm glad that I have a job to help pay for the concerts. I'm grateful to have this job. I'd like to thank Rebecca and all the staff at InClover for their support. You're welcome.